He wants to jump
1,000 cars. Sir, you have 1,000 cars.
I don't think I'd attempt to try this stunt.
Or we owe this horsepower to Uncle Sam.
Too many cars.
car. Roses would be...
Like I put my beer belly on it.
If you can't immediately tell somebody how many cars you have.
You'll really give those uppity yuppies something to think about.
Stay on the bar. Don't go off the bar with your Bronco.
1980 Volvo horns, what's right? I want to have a man's coolant.
And he's like, oh, I thought it'd be small. It's for a small car. And I'm like, yeah, but it's still an automatic transmission. They're never going to be light.
It's definitely going to have to crash.
Starting off with Brad buying another car.
That's the West.
Internet. Is this a Nigerian oil print?
I also wish you drove a tan Camry.
Anyways,
Anyway,
that's a
horrible,
very
horrible podcast content.
Very
Talking about a picture.
inside joke.
With.
No, they're on the rocks. 100% on the rocks.
Oh, yeah, they were.
There you go.
All right. Welcome to Auto Off Topic Podcast. And we've got, this is take 2, but you'll never know that, of our of our podcast with Frank and Chadwick from another Pointless Automotive Podcast. How you guys doing tonight?
Ooh, that beer crack was excellent timing.
We're great.
We are excellent. We are excellent. That beer crack was good. That was timed with the end of our conversation about the margaritas.
Yeah.
So we had our it's a Tuesday night, and we had our Taco Tuesday evening over at the local cantina, we'll call it. So it's my local spot, which is fortunately walking distance from the house if necessary on Margarita Mondays or Taco Tuesdays. So.
Is it a Taco Bell cantina or no?
It is not a Taco Bell cantina. We do not have Taco Bell cantinas here. I've only ever seen that in Vegas. Are there any anywhere else?
I was going to go Star Wars cantina.
You could go Star Wars cantina. I believe there's a Taco Bell cantina, like the world's most famous Taco Bell, which is the one like on the beach in Pacifica out here.
Okay.
It's just like the prettiest Taco Bell on the globe, and they converted it to a Taco Bell cantina, so you can get yourself your. I don't know if they do on the rocks. I don't know how to do their margaritas at a Taco Bell cantina, but
I do know that you can get a Baja Blast margarita, and I feel like something
about that.
Yeah, I feel like that's something that everybody needs to try at some point in their life. As a diabetic, I will not be doing that, but
just have 3 of them and then Baja Blast it into your lawn when you get home.
I'd be Baja Blasted 6 feet under with 3 of them.
I mean, every time you eat at Taco Bell, you get a Baja Blast, right?
That's it.
I see. I'm not. I'm pro Taco Bell. 100% pro Taco Bell. I know it sometimes gets a bad rap because I'm also pro authentic Mexican food, but I've come to the realization that Taco Bell doesn't pretend to be Mexican, so it's fine.
Sure. So what's your go-to then? And did you mourn the death of the enchilada as much as I did, or what's your deal?
So I don't want to make this an entire podcast about Brad's health concerns, but I'm diabetic, which doesn't help, and I'm also super gluten sensitive, so I can only get certain things there. It used to be stuff like the quesarito, but now I'm a steak power bowl guy.
There you go. Power on, Wayne.
Steak power bowl is the way to go. You can get it driving across country, and it's always good. And I don't have to Baja Blast afterwards because my body is used to Taco Bell, so it's good.
There you go.
Anyway, now that the gross part of the podcast is over, I will also say welcome, guys. We're gonna hit you guys with a couple of softball questions and just find out a quick little introduction into who you are and what you're doing and why you're doing it. So I think we can start off. Everybody knows the origin story of Andrew and I that listens. I think we need to have the origin story of Frank and Chadwick, which Andrew and I sort of heard last week during the beginning of our recording when everything fell apart. But
I didn't hear any of it, so it's all new to me.
Oh, perfect.
There you go.
Before that wicked nor'easter came through.
Yeah, the wicked nor'easter.
Yeah, just like total silence. It's brutal.
And
if it sounds a little different to our regular listeners, Brad and I are in the same room tonight.
Yes, we are.
Oh boy!
All right.
Night?
So depends on how many beers go down.
Yeah. Oh boy. So Chadwick, do you want to field this one? Do you want me to field it? Like what do you want to do here?
We could tag team it if you want. You can start with a section and then hot pass it to me. Baja blast it over, if you will.
We could do that. So how about this? Do you want to just start off with your late night search on Craigslist? Do you want that to and people can draw conclusions from that as they wish. But why don't you start there, and then maybe I'll field it. We'll volley this bad boy back and forth.
Yeah, so I'm up late at night looking for used automobiles that I can't afford nor need or have a place to store. I've got the meat sweats quite heavily, and I come across a 1989 Ford Taurus SHO. It looks to be in pretty good shape. So, we start working on a conversation. I think I'm a pretty quick mover. I buy a lot of junk. So, quick mover in all aspects. But I called up this particular individual and I said, let me come check out this sweet car you have. And that individual was Frank, of course, broker of fine vehicles. And basically, so I got that from him. I've also purchased, I think, 2 other vehicles from you. But the reason, like the genesis, and I'll segue into that, is we started talking. We're looking at the car kind of half-assedly, but we ended up having a genuine conversation about all the other weird stuff we've owned, what we're into, and it ended up being like a 2.5, 3 hour conversation when someone was supposed to be just buying a car.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, that was kind of it. And then, so I sold you the SHO, and then I don't even remember what other jalopies kind of came next. So I ended up sort of being, for a minute, and still am to some respects, Chadwick's crappy automotive pusher dealer, if you will. So I as a photographer, I have a photo booth or a photography gig with a local car donation company, and I help them sell some of their more interesting stuff that comes through. And some of the stuff that's not like online auction worthy, but is otherwise kind of cool, if not buckety, I would call Chadwick in the middle of the night. I'd send him like the "you up girl" text, just to see if I can get him to buy one of these random cars that would otherwise go to the junker. And so every time we would have an interaction, we would just end up talking about automotive nonsense. And it got to the point where, like, why don't we just record this one day, right? Like, maybe like 3.5 people will find it interesting one day. And that was kind of it. And so we did. We started recording this thing, and we're 70-something episodes in of what is literally another Pointless Automotive Podcast. Yeah. And so now we're talking cars and kind of doing maybe somewhat similar to what you guys are doing. I mean, certainly not entirely, but I think we've come to find out that we've got a lot of the same automotive tastes, and so here we are combining forces in one episode here.
So I think the important thing, that the biggest takeaway here, is that you found a way to still have the connections page on Craigslist that was pulled so many years ago. It's no longer man for man; it's clunk bucket for clunk bucket. So you're in the C for C section over there, and it works out, and you found each other. So anybody who's looking for some friends can just go buy old garbage, and generally, the people who are selling the old garbage are probably your kind of people. So,
kind of, yeah. I mean, Chadwick, isn't that? I mean, now I feel like this guy was somehow even stranger than I was, but didn't you kind of get the same feeling of that? You bought that Bonneville not that long ago, and you came across the guy, and he had a whole bunch of other weird jalopies sitting in his yard, and you're like, wait a minute. Like, it's kind of to speak to that point of where it's just like, like traffickers and junk tend to traffic in junk.
What was that on Craigslist? It wasn't the personals. It was like missed connections or something. Do you guys remember that?
I do remember that. I have no idea what you're talking about.
In our case, it would be Frank would be like, hey, I'm trying to push junky cars. Me, that blonde gentleman who came and talked about my show for way too long.
That's me. The old famous missed connections set. Or it's me. You passed me in traffic. 1999 Ford Taurus SHO. I sitting in my pickup truck with an empty trailer. 2 ships passing in the night. Read if you remember. Yeah.
U.S. Safeway buying organic celery. Me hiding behind the eggplants, farting.
Yes.
Yeah. Similar.
Same. So the good news is that you guys found each other, and you have a podcast now that we can all listen to, and we do listen to and enjoy. And
I apologize.
Hey, listen, we constantly apologize to our listeners as well. So I am sorry, because I know you guys have also listened. So I know it's to our listeners, we like to promote other people who do similar stuff to us, because obviously if they listen to us for whatever unknown reasons, they'd probably enjoy listening to somebody else who does something similar. And I think the biggest thing that we've always had to take away is we like everyday people stuff. Like we don't own Ferraris and Porsches and Lamborghinis, and or if we do own Porsches, as I speak to the Porsche in the back of your camera shot, we own the least desirable Porsches that we can buy cheap.
Canned versions of every manufacturer. Yes, absolutely.
Yes. Volkswagen, isn't it? Volkswagen or Audi? I can't remember.
It's complicated. Okay.
Yeah.
It depends on which part number you need to get.
Right.
Oh.
Yeah. Audi engineered it, but they used Volkswagen pieces. So
right, and it's got a Porsche badge on it. It's which means nobody wants to work on it. So it's kind of a fun.
Correct, including the owners as well.
Fact, yeah, that's why it's still on jack stands over there.
It was last week when we spoke to you as well. Because for those who don't know, we actually were on your podcast a couple of weeks back, and the episode goes live. I think when this episode comes out, that episode will already be live. So if you go check out another Pointless Automotive Podcast, you can find us on there as well. So. If you can't get enough of us, then find us there. So anyway, next
can't.
Oh, they can. They do. There's no question at all for sure. We've been around now for 300 episodes, and that means that
golf clap.
Thank you. That means that at least people have listened to us once or twice. At least 150 people individually have given us 2 chances, which makes it important. So we're getting somewhere. Anyway, enough self-deprivation. You guys have a similar podcast to us. You do not have a similar origin story because we were forced into friendship years ago and didn't have a choice. You guys chose to be friends, so that's different all in itself. But are you both long-time, all-time, forever-time car enthusiasts, or is this a later in life thing, or something that you were kind of born into and couldn't get away from?
That is a loaded question, my friend. I mean, it isn't, but it kind of. I mean, at least the short version for me is pretty much long-termer. But I guess I don't know. Like, do you want to just have us talk about like each of us, like how we each individually got into the world of automobiles? And if so, Chadwick, do you want to go first on that one?
Ooh, yeah, from the cradle to the grave. Same here. Always been into cars.
You're dead?
No, I'm anticipating that I'll still be into cars when I die.
Oh, okay. That was going like I see dead people for a second. Sorry, carry on.
Spirit vision. But no, yeah, same thing. Big Hot Wheels, Matchbox, as far back as I can remember. Being into really cool, interesting cars. My dad was famous for like buying $500 shit boxes, so I still have a love for shit boxes. So that's kind of where that comes from. But always interesting cars, weird stuff. I like fixing stuff. I've always been a kind of fixer of things, like a general handy person. So it just came naturally that I started restoring cars and mostly turd boxes and bringing them back. So yeah, I don't see that ever going away. Always been into cars, video games and stuff along the way too. I know you guys mentioned video games from time to time. Gran Turismo, big influence on me. Some other games along the way, same deal.
Was that what you loved for Pontiac Bonnevilles? Was Gran Turismo?
Yeah, that was like a cheat code you had to enter to get that fast car because it was way too OP from the beginning, right? You're like, cool R34, here's my supercharged body.
Well, I mean, that is kind of how we all got into what we're into, because the game did have R34s and Supras, and we just remember driving the Mazda Demios and the weird garbage that you don't really want, but we do want for someone.
Now we want, right? Yeah, we need a Toyota Vitz, which is just a Yaris.
Sure.
For some reason, I want a Vitz RS.
Bro, so you can race in the Vitz Cup. Come on.
Living this close to Mexico, there's all kinds of stuff I see driven over the border with Mexican tags that I want to keep here for no apparent reason, because they are all cheap pieces of garbage, and I still want every single one of them. And we do see Toyota Vitzes and Suzuki Ignis every now and again, and just some weird stuff. Every now and then something really cool too. Like there was a first gen Focus RS not that long ago that was up over here. So there's definitely some neat stuff that comes over. But
when they were still front wheel drive.
Yeah. Frank, what about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I've always kind of been interested in cars, and similar thing with all the, I had a whole bunch of the old like Tamiya, model kits growing up as a kid and building those. And I remember before I had an actual car, I was really into, I really, for whatever reason, I wanted an old school Toyota. So before I even owned a car, I was like kind of an old school Toyota head. I'd almost bought a 76 Celica liftback in baby blue over dark blue, 5-speed. That was for sale in my neighborhood for like $800. And then my parents, but at the time I was only like 14. It's not like I was like months away from getting my license. I was like years away from getting my license. So they poo-pooed that. And then I almost got an FJ40 with a Chevy small block swapped into it. And then my parents thought I was going to roll that thing over because they were right. Like a 16-year-old kid with a 327 and a 73 FJ40, bad idea. And so then I ended up, as my first car, I got my 1965 Plymouth Barracuda, which very different, very much not an old school Toyota. And then I got into a muscle car phase, and then later I got into more old school Toyota stuff, and then more everything. And now I've owned European stuff and kind of all over the place. And I think part of it was, just growing up, just model cars, toy cars, Gran Turismo, doing the endurance races on Gran Turismo 3 in the middle of the night, all summer, all that stuff. And I remember one interesting one, just a quick kind of seminal moment I remember specifically was, so I grew up, my mom, probably part of the reason why I was into old school Toyotas was I grew up, her car was an 82 Celica GTS, liftback, white over brown, 5-speed. And I thought that was going to be my first car, and I was like, sweet, this is going to be cool. And then it got rear-ended and totaled. And then this would have been 97. And she was like, hey, like, do you want to help me buy a replacement car? I want to buy a new car. I remember like, absolutely I do. And that was like my mission. We went to like the San Francisco International Auto Show, where they have all the manufacturers bring their new cars there. And so we went around, and I helped her shop. And she eventually ended up buying a 98 Integra LS sedan 5-speed as the replacement. But that was like, I remember like, then I did all the research, and I kind of went through all my old magazines and like all the stuff and I tried to talk her into buying a 3000 GT, which made no sense, but that's what one does when you're, whatever I was, 14. And so long story short is that was definitely, I think, really amped it up. Like I was into it, and that really cranked it up, and I've never looked back since. So that's in a nutshell, I suppose.
Cool. So that was a little bit of your car history, but I mean, do you guys have like any notable cars you've had over your ownership experience?
Or if Chad wants to tell us his cars, because Frank went ahead and just told us all his. So let's get the notable ones you want to talk about.
By all means, that was not all of them, but carry on, Chad.
I think I'm in the 60s now, cars I've owned. So.
Oh yeah, don't do that. We don't have that much time.
It's bad.
Nobody does.
Current fleet's only 10, so.
Maybe a quick synopsis of the current fleet.
Jesus, that's a lot.
Is it? I just sold the Bonneville. And a Land Cruiser.
I think there was some sarcasm there because he's currently sitting behind a window here. Behind us is at least 10 cars, so it's fine. If you want to just kind of give us a synopsis of maybe current fleet-ish and some real chart toppers. I think one of the things that I think about whenever I think about you guys. One of the things I think about whenever I think about you guys. Is the fact another similarity beyond having a similar podcast is that Andrew and I forever also owned identical Mitsubishi Galant VR4s, and you two gentlemen also own identical Mitsubishi Galant VR4s. So I mean, this friendship was born long before we knew each other, just based on that. So there's no other two sets of friends I think out there who have identical Mitsubishi Galant VR4s. Unfortunately, we don't anymore because I did sell mine.
Quitter.
Big tier, but let's figure it out. So beyond your Mitsubishi Galant VR4s, unless those are the ones you talk about, hit us with some cars that identify you as who you are, as your car personality. Not your personality, your car personality.
Yeah, I don't know. Current fleet, like I said, is 10. I have some pretty cool gems mixed in. I just picked up a 2005 Mini Cooper S, British Racing Green 6-speed manual. Really cool car. My second Mini Cooper. I've got a 300ZX twin turbo Nissan in the background getting refreshed as we speak. I got a 90 Corvette ZR1, an Eagle Summit wagon from 92 manual.
Oh, very cool.
I got a Chevy Blazer manual from 94. So that's a 2-door with a 5-speed. Pretty cool.
S10 Blazer, yeah?
Yeah, S10 Blazer. So pretty cool. And that's the last of the boxy kind of styling.
As you know, we have a love-hate relationship with the S10 Blazer over here.
Yeah.
We've
This
chatted
one's
about
gonna
that
be sweet,
many
though.
times.
It's pretty sweet. So I have a Nissan NX 2000. So shout out for the SR20 homies out there. I have a Dodge Neon ACR from 98, or an actual ACR.
That's for us Mopar people, obviously.
Oh yeah,
buddy.
absolutely.
Neons and ghosts
And
everywhere.
I have a 92 Miata. Historically I've owned, this is my 4th Miata. I've got a 92 Galant VR4, and that's my 4th Galant VR4 that I've owned too. So I've owned some gems. I had a 93 NSX for a little while. Had an E46 M3, had a 190E 2.316V. Had some crazy stuff along the way. Mazda Speed Miata, some kind of unique stuff. Subaru. I think Frank and I share the Subaru connection too. But
Yeah.
pretty cool stuff along the way.
Excellent. We have 2 listeners who have the Japanese import version of your Summit wagon, so I'm sure they will enjoy
like an
that.
RVR?
Expo LRV.
Neither of the above. They are Mitsubishi Chariot. Chariot Resort Runner. Is that
Come
what it's
along
called?
to carry me home.
Yeah, Chariot Resort Runner RGT, or they're going to correct us next, but they're Chariot Resort Runners, what they are. So they're basically
It's a good name.
they're the Summit, but they have a slightly higher roof with a pop-up sunroof, like a bubble window, kind of like an old Vista Cruiser in the front, and they're
Sick.
all-wheel drive manual 4G63 turbos from the factory.
Oh, that's
which
nice.
is super cool. Yeah, so
That's fantastic.
Those are neat. So you're in good company with that too. And we have another friend who has a super fast Summit 4G63 swapped turbo, ridiculous, like full on all the DSM stuff. So, all right. So that was a bit more detailed than Frank got. So I guess we will pass it back to Frank now because he did touch on some of his stuff, but
Oh boy,
he wants to get a little bit more into the detail and
Well, let me try and go quick because I don't want to burn the night away. Currently, so I've got the Galant VR4, the 91 Galant VR4. I've got a pair of 82 Porsche 924s. One's a turbo, one isn't. I've got a 41 Chevy half-ton, just a crusty old farm truck, runner driver. I still have my first car, the aforementioned 65 Barracuda. I have a 91 Subaru Sambar that I've turned into a photo booth for weddings and whatnot. So that's sort of a miniature business venture there. I just picked up an 06 LS430 with 55,000 miles on it. Metallic brown over cashmere. It's quite old man spec, and I'm kind of into it. As far as, interesting stuff in the past, as I said, I did go through a Mopar muscle phase. So I've had a couple of second-gen Barracudas, 67 Barracudas. I've had a couple of 67 Plymouth Belvederes, one with a small block, one with a big block. I've had I did get through my old school Toyota phase, so I've had a 79 Mark I Supra 5-speed. I taught myself how to drive a stick on that car. I had an 81 Performance Package Mark I Supra, which is pretty uncommon. I've had an 83 and 385 Mark II Supras. I've had a bunch, and then there's a bunch, like a poo-poo plat of other silly garbage in between. A lifted Toyota Sienna, that was my daily driver till pretty recently. Some other European stuff. I've had a couple of E24 6 Series BMWs. I had a 73 Jaguar XJ6 with a Chevy small block swap. And on and on. Some stuff is sprinkled in there in between. Oh, and I did have one other Galant VR4. I had a Summit White 91 in college that I bought and put 5,000 miles on it till the timing belt let go, because that's what those do.
Especially when you're in college and don't know you have to change them.
Well, I bought it from a guy who was nice enough he worked at the local junior college, and he let the junior college students do his timing belt and water pump on it for him. Of course, because the kids did it, there were no records of this, allegedly.
Sure.
And so I don't know that they did or didn't do it, but something wasn't done right, because 5,000 miles later, it decided to fail, and I ended up trading it as a non-runner to a dude for a 1990 Eddie Bauer Ford Bronco that I then immediately sold for $100 more than I paid for that Galant. So I was able to get out of jail free a little bit. But that's kind of just a quick rundown. I'm sure there's some way more interesting stuff in there that I've forgotten about. A couple of old school Volvos, random stuff like that. But yeah, in a nutshell.
So one of the things we get asked, and is something that I always don't have a good answer to, so I'm going to force you guys to answer it as well. Why? What is your end game? What is the point? Why do we have all these cars? Because I don't have an answer for it, and I can never answer that question. And my answer is always, I guess I do have an answer for it. My answer is always, why not? Oscar the Grouch. I love garbage. Garbage makes me happy. I don't have any good reason for it other than that. I mean, and it's even to the point, where we're all pretty bad, but we have different levels of bad. And sometimes Andrew asks me why, because I have way more garbage than he's willing to put up with, and sometimes even more than he's willing to put up with in a friendship, I think. So he's here on vacation, and we register my car all day. So that's just how life works when you hang out with me, I guess. But so why is there an end game? Are you in it for just the love? Are you in it to sell some stuff and make a couple bucks, or is it just the experience, the love, and what do you enjoy doing with the cars?
Yeah, we kind of reflected on that recently in an episode. We looked back and tried to justify basically why we are the way we are horribly. But for me, speaking personally, for me, when I see a good deal, when I see a rare car that, you know what you're looking for, we all have that list in the back of our head, and it pops up for sale, you either move or you lose out, right? And for me, it's that fear of missing out. Especially like if it's a turd box that needs to be restored, right? Like if I don't do it, that thing's going to a junkyard or is going to continue to rot away in this backyard. It's my duty to bring that thing back to life.
It's also okay. It's okay if it's rotting in your backyard, just not their backyard.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It'll get put in a garage here and it'll be kind of worked on eventually. I mean, that Z car sat for almost 2 years before I could get to it. So it'll get done eventually, but it's just, I feel like this obligation to step in there and fix it up. And Frank, how do you justify your car fleet behind you too?
Oh, yeah. You know what? I wish I can justify it the way you are. We're like, oh, it's going to sit in a garage. Meanwhile, I'm like street parking 3 cars and like collecting the ire of my neighbors. So I don't have that get out of jail free card, but a lot of it's very similar. I've bought cars where I brought it home because somebody was like, oh, this is going to go to the wrecker or whatever. I mean, that was our origin story, that Taurus SHO. I bought that for $800 because it was about to go to pick and pull the very next day. And I bought it smogged. I drove it home, but it was going to go to pick and pull because nobody wanted it because nobody knew what it was. And so there's some of that. There's some of like, hey, I always wanted to tinker with one of these, and the price is right. And I know I'm not going to necessarily lose on the other end unless hours after I buy it, it turns into a ball of goo, which apparently happens sometimes. But, for the most part, I get to have a little bit of fun. I get to hopefully leave the car better off than I found it. And if I sell it again on the other end and make some beer money, then great. With that said, I still have way more cars than I want to have, if I'm being honest with myself. But does that stop me? No. Do I still go online and look at stuff? No. Do I still stumble upon something and buy it when I'm like, why am I doing this? And I'm like sitting at the local DMV, like registering a car and paying taxes and stuff. And I'm like, why am I doing this? Yeah, that happens all the time. But, ultimately, I think at the end of the day, I justify it because it's like, this is an interesting, unique piece of machinery. I'm keeping it from going to a worse off home, and then ultimately I get to be the arbiter of where it goes next, usually. And so I can sell it onto a good home and get it in front of the right people and save it a little bit.
That's like a common thread too between all 4 of us is we're all pretty wrench savvy. We can do our own work. It wouldn't make sense. This model doesn't make sense financially, right? If we brought everything we needed fixed to a shop, right? We'd be how many times would we be homeless? I'd be like homeless 2,000 times over. So it's just, I think we're all pretty handy. And I think that's another component of why we amass these vehicles that need this attention.
Would you say you would be NX 2,000 times homeless? Should I leave now or?
I mean, if your career was a comedian, you'd be almost as well.
Killer Reed.
It's important to remember though that you're never homeless if you do own a fleet of cars because you can always have a roof over your head.
This is true.
You're totally fine. You're totally fine.
You can have a leaking sunroof over your head.
Whatever. I think it was my father that taught me the phrase because my father, obviously, everybody knows where I got this from. That you can live in a car, but you can't drive a house. So that's
fair.
If anybody wants to know where my screwed up priorities came from, it's right there.
You can pull a trailer though, so
not with most of my cars I can't, but that's okay. I need to get to that next level that you guys talk about, like selling it on to the next home, because my issue is that I feel like I'm the only one that will even appreciate some of this stuff, and if I move it on, it's going to wind up, even if it's running and driving great, it might wind up in the wrong place. So I don't know. That's a personal issue I have with it, but
there's another weirdo out there. Don't worry.
Oh yeah,
I know.
You're
and
sitting
honestly,
with a bunch of them.
I say all this, and I can't even say all cars that I have leave my possession better than I got them either. So I don't know. I can't let it go, man. If I can't have it, nobody can. So anyway, you guys have a game you play in your podcast.
Would you like to play a game?
It's very similar to a game we play in our podcast. So we're not going to hit you with any copyright infringements here, but we do have a couple of cars pulled up for our Craig Don't Tell Me game.
Ooh. Oh boy!
For those who don't know, on their show they play a very similar game where they pull an actual print ad from a car from 70s, 80s, 90s, and one of them
80s, 90s, early 2000s.
Oh, sorry, I've messed it up a little bit there. Sorry, 80s, 90s, early 2000s. One of them will read the ad without any identifiable features to the other party, and they have to guess what the car is. Obviously, those listening to us know Craig Don't Tell Me is where normally Andrew and I will find cars on Craigslist for each other to read the ad to the other and guess what the car is with the not as eloquently spoken as the ad copy from Factory Toyota, but the drunken, possibly homeless man on Craigslist trying to sell his.
Hey, he's not homeless yet. He has a car still, okay?
When he sells it, though.
Then he'll be homeless. I'm going to read.
Will walk off.
I'm going to read this first one. Andrew knows what it is because he sent it to us last week. So
this is a good one.
This is a good one. This is a blank, and I'm going to read this word to you after this. It may be a big giveaway, or it may also be the stumbling block that makes you not get this one. So you guys ready to play the game? There's no official timer.
In tandem, so we
you
both
guys
discuss amongst
you guys
ourselves.
can be on, you're on a team. You're on a team here,
Okay.
so you guys can discuss in and amongst yourself what's happening here.
How many guesses do we get? Do we just shout it out? Or?
I mean, let's say you get 4.
Okay.
And then if you're close, maybe we'll give you a few more. There's no real rules to this game. It's very much like what was that?
Whose line is it anyway?
Yeah, whose line is it anyway? Where the rules are all made up and nothing matters. Okay, so this is a blank year, blank manufacturer and model, hardtop / convertible.
Oh.
All capitals in the first sentence. Extremely rare car. One of only 499 made in 1995. The blank made 499 convertibles that also came with a factory hardtop. Just purchased from a private collection. Car is clean inside and out. Loaded with options. Black with tan leather. Serviced recently. Ready for a new home. Female owned most of its life. Always garaged. My price is firm. Please do not bother if you're not interested at the price listed. You'll be wasting both my time and yours. Now, unfortunately, there's not a ton of data in that, so I'm going to give you a couple of extra pieces of data about the car just to kind of give you a little bit more info because that didn't have a ton. 17-inch polished aluminum 5-spoke wheels.
Ew.
4-way power driver seat. anti-lock brakes, 225/45 ZR17 black wall tires. It has a black convertible top. And it
horsepower number maybe.
Yeah, we can find the horsepower number.
What color is the vehicle?
Is black.
Is it black?
Ours black. Black over
Some
tan.
Black on tan. 95
With a black top.
Polish 17s.
I think it's 305 horsepower, but I'll have to double check that.
What are they? What's the asking price? What's this? What's our gentleman
do
looking
the
to
asking
get?
price? All right, $22,995.
Yeah, we do the asking price.
22,995. It's a 1995. You said.
It is.
Okay.
Before I heard that price, I was thinking like ASC McLaren. It felt like a very limited edition car that didn't come as a convertible that they converted to a convertible. That's where my mind was going, but that price is a little steep.
Like an
240 horsepower. I don't know if the ASC McLaren was a car in 1995, but that's okay. We won't hold that.
Well, they had an AC McLaren
Earth
Mustang, but those
horsepower.
were earlier, I think. I don't know if they had them in the SN95 body style.
No,
Didn't
they were
GM
Volkswagen
have some
based.
ASC? GM had some ASC cars in the mid 90s.
I can't think of any, but we'll hold that fact.
They did like the Pontiac Grand Prix and stuff, but I don't think they ever made it as a soft top, as a convertible.
ASC just as in the American sunroof, not the McLaren part.
Correct.
Okay,
Yep.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, I can tell you with much authority, this is a factory-built convertible car. It's not an ASC.
With a hardtop option too.
With a hardtop option, 240 horsepower.
He said 95, 240.
Talk to me, Frank. What are you thinking?
It doesn't mention anything as far as transmission, does it? I didn't hear anything about it was like 5-speed or.
The ad does not, but if I go in to look at the car, I'll give you that. Let's see. It looks like we have a 5-speed manual with overdrive.
I'm not Mr. I'm not E36 M3 guy. So I don't know if they made a convertible in 95, and maybe if they did, they made like a very small number of them, and that's why it's only. But the horsepower kind of 17. If it's factory wheels at 17s though, polished, that wouldn't jive.
No.
It's definitely not an R129. Only 499. For some reason, I feel like it's domestic.
This is $499 with the hardtop. There's way more than 499 of these cars existing. Only 499 are built with the hardtop. Was very specific in the ad.
That's a weird deal. So it's a hardtop, and it also has a soft top, or no dice.
It has two tops.
Yeah, it has a soft top underneath.
Top in it.
Correct. Yeah. Again, they made way more than 499 of these. Even way more than 499 convertibles.
I'll give you the hint that you were in domestic. So
yeah, you're correct with domestic.
Okay. It feels domestic.
That's why I went with ASC at the beginning. 240 horsepower, was that correct?
I mean, could it be a Mustang?
Or are you thinking like an Saline or something?
Not with that horsepower. I mean, maybe, but like, just mentally, with polished wheels, black over tan, came with a factory hardtop. I know that's roughly the same horsepower as the early modulars, Ford modulars. We've got 4 guesses. So do you want to just maybe shoot from the hip? The other option is if it's like 95, it wouldn't be a Camaro, wouldn't be a Firebird, not a 240 horsepower 95.
No, that's like a V6.
It'd be more ballsy than that. I'm just
by ballsy, you mean like barely 300?
Sure.
Well, 95 would have still been an LT1 car.
It would have been LT1. It would have been 275, I think, right?
Right.
On the power.
A little ballsier.
It also wouldn't have been a 5-speed. It would have been a 6-speed.
Correct.
Truth.
Was it just a straight GT though? I mean, That'd be weird if they only had.
He's had 300
400.
horsepower.
No, 240 horsepower. I guess
240.
300 at the top of my head was 240.
Unless it's an early Cobra, like early Mustang Cobra.
No, Mustang GTs had
95.
300 horsepower out of their V8s.
Not 95.
Yes, sir.
No, I think it's about 240, and then it bumped to 265, and then it was 305 for the 32 valve Cobra motor, and then it turns out they were full of shit, and so then they put a supercharger on it to give everyone the middle finger. I'm thinking Mustang. I think it's a Mustang.
Okay. So in 1995, could you get a convertible Mustang also with a hardtop?
Maybe only 499 of them.
Well, you are 100% correct. So it is a Mustang convertible with a hardtop.
Okay.
It is a Cobra. So in 1995,
it is a Cobra. Okay, early Cobra.
Weak sauce on that horsepower. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So
wow.
1995 would have not been a modular motor. So 240.
Oh, you're right. That's the last year of the 5.0. You're right.
Correct. So 240 would have been 240 would have been correct or pretty close for an early mod motor if it was a 96 car. But because 95, it's 240, and that was the hot version of the old school 5-liter. I was unaware.
Because otherwise it was 225, I think, right, for a standard GT?
For a regular GT, yeah. But when I told you it was 305, that was my error because I was thinking of the later Cobra.
Right, yeah.
The number Cobra, is 240 was a number that was lower than I thought as well. I've never seen one of these in person with a hardtop on it. It's actually, it doesn't look like a convertible. The hardtop follows the lines of the OEM top, like exactly. It's
of the OEM coupe.
Yeah, it's quite surprising. It just looks like a coupe with the hardtop on. Very similar to the E36. Kind of has a very coupe look. Obviously, you can tell it's different, but it still looks like a hardtop. It just looks like a Mustang. It doesn't.
22 and a half. 22 and a half. We think that's overpriced.
I mean,
I'm not sure if they'll ever be super collectible.
It's a Cobra.
The 93 Cobras are very valuable, but that's a whole different animal.
This car only has 59,000 miles on it, which helps. I don't think it's worth 30 grand because you can still get 23 grand because you can still get an 03 Cobra, I think, for
Terminator
that price range, and that's a much more of a car in my personal opinion.
All respects. Yeah.
I mean, people are more into a Terminator Cobra than these
for sure. I think that somebody's dreaming a little bit, but that's the unfortunate thing with Greg. Don't tell me. We're not talking about an MSRP here. We're talking about Mr. Trying Not to Be Homeless's.
I know what I've got. Yeah.
Self-valuation of his car. So, let's see. We had another one here. Let's see this good. Oh,
boy.
We get three. We usually do three total. So,
when we do this one,
this doesn't have enough information, so I think we're gonna skip over that one, and we might go on to this guy here.
Oh boy. We'll have to take less time on guessing on this one. I think
it's going to
this one will be incredibly hard.
Yeah, I know some. I know some facts on this one if you want to.
Factoids.
Yeah.
All right. So we've got hello. I'm
Hi.
selling this very rare blank.
That's shit.
Should I give this info?
Yes.
Okay. Fresh from Brazil.
Oh.
Never seen salt or snow here in New England. They've got a clean Mass State title, ready for a new owner. This car came from Sao Paulo, Brazil last summer, and now can be yours in the U.S.
Ooh.
Asking price, $35,000 or best offer in cash. I can trade it.
Is that American or?
Yeah.
Nope. Kind of.
That's pretty much it.
I'm going to give you a couple more pieces of info on this car.
Yeah. Okay. It's Brazilian.
This is a 4.1 liter inline six. This is a 1991 car. This car is carbureted in 1991.
Carbed 4.1. Why is that number sticking in my craw?
Carbed 4.1.
It's not a 70 series Land Cruiser, is it? Because you had a 4.0.
It is not. Your first question that was asked was, "Is it domestic?" And we already answered your question is yes. So I'll get you right out of your Land Cruiser.
This is. Oh, sorry, I didn't. So they're all domestic then.
Well, let's define domestic here.
Wait, yeah, was this
Domestic in Brazil?
So there's a couple issues here with it being from Brazil and being domestic. Is it domestic or is it not? Now, when we define domestic, are we talking domestic to America?
I guess is the nameplate on it a traditionally known as being an American manufacturer?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that is definitely an American manufacturer. If I were going to tell you that it was a vehicle that they sold here, I'd probably be lying. So this is
why would you pay $35,000 for a Brazilian import if you just buy one here?
Right. Especially a 1991 car that's carbureted from the factory.
Couldn't you still get a Jeep Wrangler carbureted in 91? Not that that's not what this is, but
a lot of SUVs and trucks were still carbureted in 91. Yes.
Ford had a 4.1 straight six, right? During that, a little older, maybe.
Trying to mentally convert that to cubic inches. That would be what, like a 225 or something? 230?
Oh, let's see. Somewhere in that general vicinity. If 302 is 5.0. Yeah, somewhere in that general vicinity. That's not important. It's a 4.1. It's a 4100.
4100. This is a sticky wicket. Can I get a door count? Is that kosher?
It has 4 of them.
4 whole doors.
Naturally aspirated or turbocharged?
This is very, very naturally aspirated.
So you're saying it's like 6.2 to 1 compression? Like that's how naturally aspirated it is?
Given the horsepower number versus the cubic inch number, I would say yes. This is a 4.1 liter inline 6 making 120 horsepower.
All the torque.
All of the torques.
All the torque. Because the information system is kind of low, I'll give you the biggest hint I can give here.
Okay.
This particular vehicle rhymes with an American market vehicle, but is not the same.
Oh boy! Hold on, let me mentally go through every the Rolodex of every possible domestically sold American vehicle.
Yes.
Is it a Crustang? No.
Wait, the make or the model? Sounds like
no. The make is an American make that you can get here.
But the model's
the model is a rhyming name with another model from that manufacturer. That was a historic model dating back to 1959.
Ooh.
And sold here until I think 2 years ago.
A Pimpala.
I mean, you are so close right there.
I'm just trying to put it together.
Pimp hauler, I think is what you were trying to say.
Well, then the rhyme goes away with impaler. Pimpala erased the rhyme. You probably couldn't get any closer without getting
Chimpala.
It, though. If you want to stay with the Allah part here, we'll really break it down.
Ah, boy.
I guess there's also the danger that you guys don't know this car exists because it's from.
That might be it. Because I'm being honest, I'm outside of the Nissan Suru. I'm not really up on which is a defunct B13.
We will skip over
Sentra.
this one and we'll give you. We'll call this one a tie here. We'll give the answer because you got all the way to Pimpala, which is funny enough to let it slide. So this is a Chevrolet Opala.
I've never heard of an Opala.
Aha. So the Chevrolet Opala was kind of a Nova-sized car through the 60s and 70s. And you could get an Opala SS. And the cool thing about the Opala SS was it came in a 2-door. It had a tail stripe, like a Mopar-style tail stripe. but the SS version came with a 5-speed and twin side drafts.
Okay.
Sorry, triple side drafts, which is super cool.
So is it like an old stove? It's got to be like an old Stovebolt 235 then, inline.
I honestly don't know what exact engine it is. It's not very familiar looking, I can tell you that much.
Because I think that is effectively like a 4.1, and they made that from like straight up like 1940 up until I think domestically they killed it off here in like 1961 or 62, but then I think in commercial applications and other stuff they made it way longer, and I bet you dollars to dildos it's that same motor.
It says the Opal is long-lived 250 cubic inch 4.1.
Oh, it's a 250. Okay.
Yeah, so it probably is the same one we got here, but they had a hotted-up version of it. There was the SS version of it. I think it made somewhere in the high 200 horsepower rating. So, yeah, pretty neat stuff. So that one was really difficult and really not fair. So we'll skip over to the last one here.
I'm comfortable with not fair.
This one has a lot more info and a lot more. It's also not an American market car. We'll just start with that, but it's one that you have a better chance of knowing. And it's one that if you follow me closely, you might even have a bigger hint to, because it actually belongs to a friend of mine, and I've posted pictures of it sometime in the recent past. Okay, from Craigslist. This is a 1992 blank edition. It is one of the most sought after and unique cars from blank. And it's one of the most fun and exciting cars you can legally drive. Ooh. Featuring gull-wing doors and a mid-mounted turbocharged engine and exotic car styling, the blank is a head-turner no matter where you go. This particular example features the highly sought-after blank trim with upgraded bumpers, hood, and F40-style rear wing. Ooh. Inside, you'll find a black interior with red seat details, a 5-speed manual transmission, a aftermarket radio and air conditioning. This particular example is finished in black with blemishes here and there, but shines and presents well. Mechanically, runs and drives great. Recent alternator belt, yada, yada, yada. New 13-inch tires all around. Frame is in great shape. Floor pans show signs of repair, hence reduced price.
Okay.
I think we're okay with this one.
Yeah, hey now.
Hey.
So I think it's one of two options. One is the easy one. One is the one I don't completely 100% remember exactly what it's called.
It's the easy one, man. It's definitely with the gull-wing mid-engine turbo, right?
Well, yes. So the easy one would be the AutoZam AZ1.
There you go.
But okay, but they also made a Suzuki version of that, right? And I don't remember what that was called.
Way to steal my thunder.
Oh, sorry.
They did make a Suzuki version of it. Yep. Suzuki or Suzuki? Yeah, no, sure. We'll call it the Foof. That's totally fine. This is an AutoZam AZ1 Mazda Speed Edition.
There's a
sweet.
There was a Suzuki one at Japanese Car Day.
Serve
something. I forget what it's called.
It probably wouldn't be hard to figure out with the old Google machine.
These are cool. I'd love to have one of these cars.
Yeah, easy ones are really cool. I've sat in one before. They are kind of interesting getting in and out of, but they are impossibly cool. I would not want to flip one over on its lid, but that aside, I think they're really cool.
Suzuki
I still
Kara.
personally like Cappuccino. Speaking of Suzuki.
So we had this whole conversation this weekend because my friend actually had this AutoZam that's currently for sale on Craigslist out and about and at an event that I was at. And we were all kind of talking about which of the kind of weird Japanese K cars we would import if we could import one. And a lot of the conversation about the AZ1 was the whole, it's probably the most dangerous of all of them.
Yeah,
so
for several reasons.
For a few reasons. And one of them being that I guess a lot of gull-wing door cars have some kind of emergency, like if the car is upside down, the door pops open system. Yeah. And the AZ1 doesn't have that.
Nah.
Yeah. But counterpoint, the AZ1 is entirely glass from your hip to the passenger's hip. So it might not be necessary because chances are pretty good there wouldn't be anything holding you in anyway. So
you're going to be ejected before you have to escape.
100%. So if you are interested in an AZ1, this car is for sale for $22,000, and I can personally vouch that it's pretty nice looking. So
that's a really good price. for one of
That's
those.
that's actually pretty good for a Mazda Speed one.
Yeah, somebody put new floor pans in it, which is the issue. So he's
okay.
reduced the price a little bit, but he's a interesting character with a bunch of cool cars. So
Nice.
anyway, go ahead, Frank. What were you saying?
Well, I was going to say, yeah, I agree with wrecking an AZ1 would be a bad day, but as somebody who owns and drives occasionally a 91 Subaru Sambar, in a cab forward design in those, in a K vehicle where your feet are sitting ahead of the front wheel,
it's got an
and
airbag named
really
Frank.
no bumper. Yeah, it's a little dicey.
Yeah, for sure. And that's unfortunately, people talk all the time about the safety of new cars, and obviously we have the conversation about children and putting kids in the old cars, and how do you justify it and what do you do? And we understand the risk. It's one of those things where if we didn't want to do something that was risky, we'd all go out and buy a new Camry and just be a boring person all day long, and
that's it.
Be guaranteed a long, boring life. But I mean, I don't want to say I'd be happy going out in an old car, but at least I lived my life with my old fun car. And I don't know, there's no real other way to say it. Obviously, the conversation with children is a whole other conversation because we're making a conscious choice for somebody else. But I think that my personal opinion is have your nice, safe car for your daily use. And it's okay to put your kids in the car for the weekend to go to a show and kind of give that experience and kind of develop that love with them. And I think that most of us have that same, don't do anything stupid, but also like, hey, I mean, I grew up in the back of a motorcycle. My dad would take me places in the back of a motorcycle, which is something that maybe in 2023 I might not do, but in the ripe old 80s, it wasn't as big of a deal, I guess. So, but it's one of those things with any hobby, you got to do what feels best to you, because that's why we do the hobby. As we talked about earlier, justifying why we have the hobby.
There it is.
We don't need to justify it. It makes us happy, and that's all that matters.
You know what makes an excellent child-friendly, interesting car to drive around from yesteryear? A Galant VR4.
Funny story.
Uh-oh.
The short version of a long story. The gentleman who I sold my car to is a longtime friend who actually helped facilitate the purchase of it when I bought it. And the reason he bought it is because he owns a second-gen Eclipse that's fully caged and runs like low nines. And he owns a Miata, and he just had a baby, and he wants a fun car to do baby things with. So he bought the Galant VR4. Also, it's like his third Galant VR4. And I think Andrew here is always talking about looking for a vintage Volvo 240.
Right.
For that same
Solid
purpose.
choice.
It's a good car for good car for doing events with and taking the kids along with you. So there's ways to do it. And listen, my daughter was dropped off to school quite often in a 1980 Dodge Colt hatchback, and thankfully we never got in an accident, and the only thing that ever got hurt was her ego. So it's the only issue there. But nonetheless, she'll always remember that 1980 Dodge Colt as, for better or for worse, her experience growing up. So it's, again, I guess it's our responsibility to do what we want and have the most fun we can have doing it and not worry about it too much. So
right. And just like try and do it like at least like mildly sensibly, right? Like
100%.
There's one thing, it's just like I dropped my on St. Patty's Day I took the green 924 out, and I dropped the kid off at school in it. Because hey, St. Patrick's Day, you got to show up to school in a green car. So we went, and his school's less than a mile from my house, and it's not like I'm trying to do 90 in the thing and like cut and do stupid stuff and commute traffic or try and dice up a back road with him in it. And if I did dice up a back road, it would be at like 4/10, right? And so I think it's just be sensible and keep your head on a swivel and don't put yourself in shitty situations, and you're fine.
And that's the thing. I think it's a lot like riding a motorcycle. When you're driving an old car, you really have that. I think it makes you a more aware driver anyway, and it makes you a better driver because you're always concerned about that soccer mom or dad in a Escalade that weighs 8,000 pounds, which is 6,300 pounds more than your 924. So it becomes a serious actual thought in your head. And I ride motorcycles, I drive old cars, and you just have to, you become a better driver, unfortunately, through necessity. And unfortunately, I did have a pretty serious accident in a vintage car not too long ago, a year or so ago. But thankfully, it was a mid-'90s vintage car, and it was a Saab, so I couldn't.
Swedish,
Yeah. But and it's funny because I run that back in my head all the time. I don't know how he got down this dark path, but I ran that down. I run that in my head all the time of what would have happened if I wasn't in the Saab. What if I did take the Colt that day, or did take the Cressida that day? And the single thing I always come back to is I wouldn't have been in the passing lane doing 75 miles an hour. I'd have been in the right-hand lane, cruising along at my own pace and not worried about it, and it wouldn't have happened. So
intoxicated with that Swede speed.
Yeah, well, it's a 1997 car, so it felt so much more insulated than a 70s or 80s car, and it's almost like modern, driving around in a modern car. So it's personal preference I get, but that's about an hour, guys. I'd love to do it again and get a little deeper on some other things. We just barely scratched the surface, I feel like, learning who you guys are. But
yeah, it's okay. When we're on part 37, people will finally be writing and complaining, and the bloom will be off the rose. But until then,
you and the government also feel like you don't know us well enough. So we'll just keep it that way for now.
We're 600 episodes in. We could use 37 more episodes of content. You guys talking? So
brilliant.
But, excellent. Well, again, thanks you guys for coming. I think before we go, the most important thing to do is where can people find you on the internet? Personally and podcastily.
Take it, Chad.
Oh, yes, sure. So APA Podcast, another Pointless Automotive Podcast. Anywhere you listen to your finest automobile-themed, loosely themed podcasts, check us out there. We also have a weak but growing, I guess you could say, YouTube presence and Instagram. Same deal, kind of weak, but there. Pulse is still there. Check us out. And then personally, Auto Obsessive Garage, you can follow me on YouTube for my rescue restorations of crap boxes, car reviews, things of that nature. Frank, where can the good folks follow you personally?
Oh, boy. Well, I can be found up in the club, as 50 once said. Beyond that, the Photographer's Garage on all of the things. And that's pretty much it. How about you two? What are you guys doing besides hanging out with the shades drawn together as one?
Well, it's dark out there. You wouldn't say anything anyway.
Oh, yeah.
We'll get into it next week because Andrew's here this week. And we're tearing through some of my projects real fast. But let's see. Social media. Follow us at Auto Off Topic on Instagram. Auto Off Topic Podcast on Facebook, where it's just the same content as Instagram pushed over to Facebook. Auto Off Topic on Twitter. Scale Autocast on Instagram. Personally, you can follow me at TSISS350 on Instagram and Brad_DeSantis on Twitter. Andrew, where can they find you and POTV?
Raced and Anger on Instagram and parkedontheblock.com. Come see us. We've got some posts on there, and also Parked on the Block on Instagram and Parked on the Block without the K on Twitter.
Believe it or not, Parked on the Block is too long of a name for Twitter by one letter.
Yep.
Quite frustrating.
So have you tried atting Uncle Elon and see if he can?
I was thinking we get the blue circle and put a P in it. Maybe we make it work. But there you go. It's probably not going to happen. So
bang.
Anyway, again, thank you guys for joining us. I'm sure we'll do this again. I already have an idea for another episode I want to do with you guys.
Oh my.
Yeah. Well, it's okay. We'll chat. We'll chat about it. It's nothing serious. It's just an opinion piece. We'll put it that way. I think that you guys are very aligned with us, so I think the opinion here might kind of work out. So
that's it. Let's keep this echo chamber going.
100%. 100%. Well, listen. I mean, hey, we do this for free. Nobody pays us. We're allowed to say whatever we want. So people listen to us by choice. So we might as well put our opinions out there, right? So
that's right.
Heck to the yeah.
All right. That's so, as always, Andrew,
keep cars analog and aim for the roses.
Woo!